Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights, and this is a little video interview that we put together for American Eagle Gold, which is listed on the TSX Venture AE, and it's also on the OTC AMEGF. And with me today, I've got the President and CEO, Tony Moreau. Hey, Tony. And I've got their principal geologist, I guess, is Neil Prowse from Charlie Gregg's group. And just, a bit of background, Charlie Gregg's group was also involved in the GT Gold, which was, behind the Saddle North discovery that eventually got bought out by Newmont. So that same group now is working with this company. So a bit of background on this company. It's called American Eagle Gold, but Tony, can you explain why that's got very little to do with your flagship project now?
Yeah, we started off in Nevada. We failed. We left Nevada. Joe, I've said this a bunch of times. There's two main rules about junior mining. You're gonna fail fast, and always protect your cap structure. So when we left Nevada, which was gold focus, we kept the name. We didn't want to spend the extra $50,000 to change the name. We thought if we hit something, it doesn't matter what our name is, and we just focus on the task at hand. Protecting our treasury, put as many meters in the ground as possible. And now we got a project in BC. It's copper focused, but it also has a lot of gold coincidentally. But we're predominantly copper right now in BC.
Okay, and this project, the NAC, is not in a porphyry belt that is the more, let's say, trodden porphyry belts in BC. So Neil, can you talk to us about the Babine sort of trend?
Yeah, so the Babine Porphyry Belt is, like you said, a little less well known than something like the Highland Valley deposits in the south, or the Golden Triangle deposits like Red Chris and Galore, KSM, etc. So the Babine deposit is in central. So the Babine deposit belt is in central BC, and it was primarily explored in the 60s and 70s by Noranda, and there are actually two operating mines there, the Bell and Grand Isle mines. I believe the last one shut down in 1992, but these were sort of middle tonnage, middling grade deposits, but right at surface. So it was economic to mine them. The NAC deposit, or the NAC property, was a little less explored because at the time it was a bit further away from the dominant infrastructure and highways when the initial area was explored in the 70s. So it's a little bit further to the north, but now with the logging industry, there's excellent road access there. We're putting our efforts on NAC in the Babine Porphyry Belt, and we think there's still a lot of potential. It's the whole industry has kind of been sleeping on this belt just because it doesn't have, or hasn't historically had, the kind of eye-popping grades you get up in the northern BC deposits.
So this NAC, initially, what I guess registered it as to put it on your radar with respect to testing it, because what I understand, there was a geophysical anomaly there that seemed to be something to test.
Yeah, so NAC has a classic porphyry geophysical signature, and unlike the other well-defined deposits in the area, Bell, Morrison, Grand Isle, it doesn't appear to be faulted off in any way in the geophysics either. So it's actually a larger geophysical expression than the other deposits in the area. That geophysical expression is characterized by a central magnetic high and a broad IP chargeability halo around that magnetic high, which historical drill testing indicates is phyllic alteration. So it has a really large, again, just classic porphyry geophysical signature, and that really attracted the people who brought it to the attention of American Eagle, Steve McMullen and Gary Artmont, and one of the big reasons why some of the majors have expressed interest in this as well.
Right. So when we're talking about a core, magnetic core, that's usually like potassic alteration with magnetite in it. And when you're talking phyllic with respect to the chargeability, we're talking a lot of quartz sericite and importantly pyrite, which generates the pyrite in the chargeability halo. And so then you tested it last year with, I believe, 6,000 meters in the 2022 drill program.
Yeah, just shy of 6,000 meters.
Okay, and then what sort of excited you and me when I went actually to see the core? What sort of, and how is this different maybe as well to what you said was the middling open pittable grades of the other deposits in the belt?
Yeah, so we set out to test a coincident magnetic high and resistivity high that was beneath the historical drilling. So I'll just, before I dive right into what we did in 2022, just a quick summary of the historical drilling. There was a sort of gold-rich zone defined in the south of the property, and about 400 or 500 meters to the north of that, there was a more copper-rich near-surface zone over quite a broad area, but again, lower grades like 0.2, 0.3% copper equivalent kind of was the max in the historical discovery holes over longer intervals. That said, the historical drilling really didn't test to depth, right? There was 15,000 meters of drilling done, and only 7 of those holes went deeper than 300 meters, with the deepest hole only testing 460 meters below surface. So we set out in 2022, initially in that south zone, the gold-rich area. We did about 100 meters step out from the best holes with the idea of testing kind of straight down right into the heart of this geophysical anomaly. What excited us right off the bat was just pretty abundant, pervasive chalcopyrite mineralization in that shallow, like right from surface. As we continued to drill deeper, we got out of the kind of mixed volcanic package that was hosting a lot of that disseminated mineralization and into the main Babian porphyry stock intrusive. And now that is associated in the area with the porphyry mineralization as a whole. So we see this BFP, biotite feldspar porphyry, which is what it was historically logged as. It's actually plotting more as a phaneritic granodiorite wherever we encounter it. But regardless, that seems to be the driving source of the porphyry mineralization in the area. And when we started hitting this unit, as we got deeper in it, we hit it at about 350 meters. And the more we kept drilling, the more bornite mineralization we kept seeing. And that's was really compelling. Not a lot of disseminated mineralization in the intrusive in that Babian porphyry stock, but a lot of fracture hosted and veinlet hosted bornite. And the ratio between bornite and chalcopyrite increased as we continued to get deeper. And then down quite deep, around 800 meters, we actually hit a zone of semi-massive chalcopyrite and bornite, really heavily altered, kind of hosted within this intrusive. And that also resulted in some pretty spectacular grades. So yeah, we have near surface, really gold-rich mineralization, and deeper down, this really encouraging bornite mineralization. And this was just in the first hole. And we can continue to see this as we step to the north along our planned fence. So yeah, that's kind of what gave us the confidence to push forward in 2022 and raise a little bit of extra money. Is the model of maybe there's some higher grade mineralization down deep was holding. And yeah, we wanted to continue to test that.
So is this deeper, more bornite over chalcopyrite mineralization also evident in other porphyries that were mined previously, or they never got that deep?
They never really got that deep. The deepest the main drilling went at Bell, Morrison, and Granile was around 400 meters. And somewhat similar to what we see here. There was some indication that grade picked up at depth, but they never described bornite on the scale that we were seeing. Another interesting thing is we, in addition to the bornite, we're seeing hypogene chalcocite as well, another really high grade copper ore mineral. So yeah, we have some indication that right off the bat, maybe we're slightly deeper eroded than these other deposits. We're seeing a hotter part of the system at more accessible depths than maybe the other deposits in the area. That said, we also see in other holes, notably NAC 2202 and NAC 2204, a really interesting lithology, which appears to be cutting both the intrusive and the bounding volcanic rocks that hosts abundant disseminated bornite. Thin section analysis and geochemical analysis kind of indicates that this is likely a dike intruding. that seems to be really abundantly mineralized and mineralizing the surrounding rocks around it. So there's some indication that we have this Babian porphyry stock intrusive, but we also have this secondary phase of intrusion that's bringing with it a lot of this bornite mineralization.
Yeah, I did notice that most of the bornite seems to be overprinting.
Yes.
So that would make a lot of sense. I guess when you're looking at it, is are these dikes only evident at depth?
The shallowest we've encountered them is around 500 meters, and that's very likely the reason that the historical drilling didn't encounter them. That said, there's a broad area on the property that hasn't been tested, notably to the west of where we drilled in 2022, which is going to be a focus of 2023 drilling, and putting some intercepts on these dikes to try and get a proper 3-point and figure out their orientation. We can trace these back to source, given that wherever they intrude, they seem to be bringing in densely disseminated mineralization on scales of up to 100 meters surrounding these dikes. That makes a really compelling target.
Okay, and the other question I have is, like, when we were up there looking at it, there's an age that is given to a lot of the porphyries in that area, and then there is a question given the difference in the alteration and the high bornite content, that this might be a different age. Are you looking at maybe some other event that's different than the event that produced the other lower grade porphyries in the area?
Yeah, well, so we have a number of mineralization samples sent off for rhenium osmium dating where we see molybdenite. So hopefully within the next few weeks, actually, we'll be getting age dates back on the mineralization. And then there's also, we're looking into doing some actual zircon dating of the various intrusive phases as well for a bit more control. But yeah, that is a possibility. The Babian Porphyry district is early Eocene age generally. So these are tertiary aged intrusions. So it's quite a bit younger than all of the other porphyries in BC. So it's the youngest generation of mined porphyries in the province. So that right there, explains a lot of maybe the geochemical differences that we see in these deposits versus places in the Golden Triangle or elsewhere in southern BC. But that said, the host rocks are all Hazelton group, so Jurassic age. So these could be older intrusions, and that's a possibility. With that information, will it affect how we explore it? I mean, they might just change the potential really of the deposit. Right now, we're trying to define the geometry and the position of the best zones of mineralization.
Right, and where you are located, you've got your NAC property, but you're basically enveloped by a joint venture with Boliden and Amark.
That's right. Yeah,
that's also exploring in the area, but I'm not sure if they've encountered what you've encountered yet.
No, from looking at their news releases and their core photos and information they've made public, they don't seem to have the prevalence of bornite that we're seeing. And that seems to be kind of the key difference. A lot of the rocks they're describing seem to be pretty similar to our main intrusive phase. It's this potentially secondary overprint of bornite mineralization that's really interesting. And yeah, it really does seem like our intrusion, which in most porphyry settings should be fairly devoid of mineralization, as all the kind of fluid is exalted to the margins and you're mineralizing the rock around the context of it. We see a lot of fracture-hosted and vein-hosted bornite within that main Babian porphyry stock intrusion. So there's some pretty good indication that there's a secondary later phase of mineralization that's maybe affecting these rocks even when they were, more brittle and cooled. So significantly post-dating that main intrusive phase.
Okay, so when you hit this intersection, which was different than what other people were hitting in that trend, you signed a lot of CAs with major companies, and you got one interested and who did the private placement recently. So I'm wondering, like, what did they what made them take, I believe, what is it, a 19% or a 15% interest in the company and do the last equity financing, which was Tech Resources?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for them. Their indications to us in going over what they saw something unique. There aren't a lot of direct analogs to the mineralization that we're seeing here. And that, I think, warrants it as it has some significant upside potential there, let's say. If this was dead similar to Bell, Morrison, Grand Isle, maybe they wouldn't have been as interested given the lower grades. But because of the differences we see in this deposit versus other ones in the area, I think they're seeing some potential there. I mean, there's also the near surface potential with really high grade gold. I mean, we did hit 125 meters of just over a gram per ton gold from surface in that first hole, and very similar in the second hole that we drilled off the same pad incline to the north. So they see some really good near surface potential and some deeper, higher grade potential as well.
Right. So now you're financed, and I believe, Tony, you're sitting with over $4 million in cash right now, Canadian?
Yeah, so the deal is going to close on May 25th, and we have about $4.5 million in the bank, give or take. So it's more than enough to cover our drilling this year. We budgeted $2.5 million drill program this year. Obviously, we have $3 million in flow through, which we have to spend on the property by the end of 2024. So we have optionality. We have also optionality to tap into our treasury if we want to expand it. So, a lot of things change during your exploration program, but we're quite financed. So we don't have that overhang of selling of shares coming off the table, because Tech's in there for strategic reasons. Those shares will not be sold. So, we're fine for the foreseeable future, which is absolutely great. Just to touch on something earlier, Neil was talking about the question you had, Joe. We first looked at this property. We obviously looked at Duke, and not saying Duke isn't good, but the original shareholder or property holder of this Birdie Craft had the whole region together. You have to work the land as an individual, prospector. It's expensive to work the whole land. So it was a calculated decision to keep the NAC project and let everything else go. And I'm not saying Duke isn't very good. I think it has a lot of potential, but, showing what Boliden was able to invest in Duke, has a good marker on our property, which the original holder wanted to keep ours over Duke. So the expression I always say is Boliden came in there and bought France, but they didn't include Paris in the deal. We have the City of Lights. I think we have the best targets, and we're really starting to prove that.
So now the other, I guess, big catalyst is that you've been able to do a 5-year permit on the area, which is big. You've been negotiating that for a little while.
Yeah, our permits are sorted out. They're figured out. Now in BC, you can't even do 1-year permits anymore. They have to be 2 years, because there's a lot of work for the companies, a lot of work for the ministry. But the first thing I did when we got the property, I want to make sure we had good relations with the local community. And I said, we only want to be there if he wants to be there. So because we got our permit so quickly, people said we couldn't. We got them within 6 months. We made an agreement with the ministry and the First Nations. We said we're going to just do a 1-year plan, which you usually don't do. And from there, we said, if we have a good relationship here, you like what we're doing, let's expedite the 5-year plan. And that's how we got to the 5-year plan. So we no longer have to apply for a permit for the next 5 years. But obviously, we're working closely with the community, and we tell them exactly where we're going to be drilling. We're lucky to be on their land, but we have no kind of obstacles now in terms of the permitting, which, takes a lot of effort from, our side, which is great.
Right. And so with the permitting, with the financing, so we're expecting, we have forgotten to mention that the access is really good. We're not talking about helicopter supported, so not a lot of high costs per meter. But what do you anticipate the cost per meter given what you paid last year, Neil?
Yeah, well, last year was, average hole depth was about 800 meters. So we're drilling pretty deep holes, and that does increase the drilling cost. But without the helicopter support, it really keeps it down. So all in, and this was assaying the proper 4-acid multi-element package. So on the costlier end of assays to get all of the data we need. and assaying continuously every meter of core was assayed. We were just shy of $400 a meter all in, which is Canadian, yeah, which is pretty reasonable these days for given the increase in consumable costs and fuel costs and all that. That's not too bad, and we anticipate to be very similar this season.
And if you had to, your access is year round. If this project ever really becomes something significant, that's another positive in terms of not having really a downtime if the project warrants that.
Yeah, you need to employ a grader to keep the road plowed, but yeah, the area doesn't get a ton of snow. It's on the interior plateau, so it's around 1,000 to 1,100 meters elevation, so it sees some snow, but not, we don't get the 30, 40 feet of snow you get up in the Coast Mountains and the Golden Triangle. So yeah, you're dealing with a meter, maybe two on a really heavy snow year. So very, very manageable for winter drilling.
With all that, you're going to be drilling like in June, like next month.
Yeah, the plan is to avoid drilling in the winter. Drilling in the winter means you need to bring in water trucks because a lot of the water freezes up. It does increase your cost per meter, and it just, increases the likelihood of downtime due to logistical reasons. Our goal is to drill everything we can while the weather is good and we can get the most efficiency out of our dollars.
Sorry, Tony.
I was to add what Neil said. We're talking about $400 per meter, but given that we'll be drilling in the summer versus the winter, our cost should be, relatively below that. We're also doing a lot more shallow holes this year than we did last year.
Yeah.
And then, Neil, I think they were mining here in the Babine region before they ever started anything in the Golden Triangle region. And, Joe, you've been the property, Neil, you've been the property. This is a preferred area in terms of infrastructure, and yet almost nobody even knows about it, which is what I'm trying to educate people about, which really kind of shows the upside, because your big bottleneck when you're doing exploration is your infrastructure, is your access, and this has some of the best access in the country.
For remote BC projects, yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, we can back a truck right up to the drill rig. There's a logging camp that is very well accommodated to exploration. So yeah, for working in this area, there's a lot of good options for accommodation and access. So yeah, we're really lucky there where we're located.
All right. Well, I guess thank you, gentlemen. I'm just going to summarize there. So we've got American Eagle gold, not in America, in British Columbia, more copper than gold. There might be some eagles, but they don't seem to be a problem because they have a 5-year permit. The access is excellent, but I guess what's really driving the involvement of a major diversified miner like Teck, who have mines in British Columbia, is how different this deposit looks to other deposits in the area with the bornite overprint, which bornite has much more copper than chalcopyrite and brings the grade. So we've got the catalyst coming with respect to drilling next month. I guess with one rig to start?
One rig to start, and we'll see how it goes, yeah. Plan is to test some of the initial targets and develop our understanding a little bit better, and when we have a better idea of where to drill, the option to bring a second rig in is there. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Are you starting with the shallow holes to test the gold, or are you going to go to the deeper holes first?
Starting with the shallow holes to test the gold, we'll try to flush out that south zone a little bit more, because that could really drive the economics of further development on this project. And then, yeah, we will move to some of those deeper holes, expanding laterally our understanding of the mineralization that we hit in some of the more northern holes last year.
All right. Okay, so I'll finally wrap it up. Okay, that's me, Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights, with Neil Prowse, Tony Moreau of American Eagle Gold. Thank you, guys.